Coming up on episode 191 of Create If Writing, I'm talking about how I plan my novels.
I can't go back to sleep, it's almost light. These restless thoughts have kept me up again tonight.
Hello and welcome to Create If Writing. This is the podcast for you, an author who wants to sell more books without being smarmy. I'm your host, Kirsten Oliphant, and I am so glad you're listening, whether it's your first or 191st. I was going to say, I almost said 191th time. Oneth, that's a word. I'm a writer. I made it up. It's fiction. It's fine. It's totally fine. And it's very indicative of the kind of week I'm having. So bear with me. I'm literally drinking a boot of wine right now. I'll have to take a picture. It's a glass shaped like a boot from a restaurant called Taste of Texas. And we broke into the wine, which is probably not the thing to do while podcasting. I'm early on the wine. Maybe I don't sound like it, but I really am. Couple sips in. We'll see at the end. But yeah, before I get into the content, just a couple of updates if you are listening in time and on time. This is September 24th, 2020. It's 2020. Like, do we need to say much else? Things here have been crazy. Our kids are back in actual school, which I thought would be easier. And in some ways it is, because I have 3 days a week now where everybody's gone, because I have a preschooler who's in 3 days. Everybody else, the other 4, I have 5 kids, just in case you didn't know that. I have 5 kids. The other 4 are now in school. We've got a 6th grader, a 5th grader, a 2nd grader, and a kindergartner. So I do have some days of quiet, and that has done wonders for my mental health. However, that means Tuesday, Thursday, with everything being closed, I don't really have anything. So it's actually cut down on the work hours I have, oddly enough. And the way that homework is being done, which is like a mixture of virtual and not, because of half the students are virtual, half in person. It's your choice. And all that to say, I spent like 2 hours tonight helping kids with homework. And no, really just like checking that they'd done it. Anyway, boot of wine, that is why. And we're here. And I'm sorry that it hasn't been more consistent with the podcast. And I would really like to be more consistent. So we're working on it. But 2020, y'all, I feel like there should just be like a t-shirt that's like, whatever the question is, the answer is because 2020. Why hasn't this happened 2020? Why are you stressed out? 2020, man. That's the answer to it all. So we are diving into something that I actually recorded last week. And because 2020, my computer crashed and the recording was lost. 2020, man. So I didn't get to it. Couldn't recover it. And so we're doing this now. But I'm very excited to talk about how I plan novels, and I have a free guide for you that you can find. And so I'm not going to have show notes for today, and you can actually go find the novel planning guide if you go to, I'm making sure I'm going to tell you the right link here. It's going to be at createifwriting.com/novel planning. And you can enter your email and get the free guide and join my email list, which you can unsubscribe at any time. It's not smarmy. It's only tips, tools, and resources for authors. If you're on my list, you probably already got it, unless you're listening in 2021, and you can just ask me about it and I'll send it out, or you can sign up. It's not going to send you through a weird, long welcome sequence. Okay, so let's talk about it. And if you're in the Create If Writing Facebook group and look under videos, I did a whole video kind of walking you through the document, but I'm going to talk, before I talk about the specific document, which is weird to do if you're not looking at it, and I do it in the video, the Create If Writing Facebook group, which is amazing. You can go to createifwriting.com/community to join. And again, look under videos to find the novel planning template. But for me, I'm going to just share a little bit about how I work, because my encouragement is that you need to find how you work. And there's not going to be necessarily a right way or wrong way. You may pick and choose and parcel from different people. You may need to challenge yourself and try something new. And I'll talk about some times I tried that. But you need to find what works best for you. So I'm sharing what works best for me in hopes that it may encourage you to think outside the box, try something new, or just really embrace what works. And don't take the blinders off and start looking and going scroll at every different resource that somebody gives you. If you've got something that's working, stick with it. So For me, overall, I'm a pantser. And if you're not familiar, there's plotters, typically two groups, plotters who outline and plan things out before they start to write. And there's pantsers who, to varying degrees, fly by the seat of their pants as they write. I'm definitely a pantser, but there is a good deal of planning and thought that goes into my novels. And, there's lots of different ways that I come up with that first idea and concept. Lately, this past year, I've actually bought a lot of pre-made covers, and sometimes I'll see a cover that inspires me and I immediately have a story. There's a young adult, one of my urban fantasy stories that I cannot wait to write next year that I saw the cover and I was like, I have to have that cover. And also I have this whole story that I'm just so excited about. It's got enemies to lovers and fated mates and all kinds of things with wolf shifters. It's great. So sometimes I'm inspired by something I see, like a book cover. Sometimes I start to hear characters talking in my head or hear conversations. Sometimes it's an idea or concept, like I want to write about this. Now, I will say that the least successful for me have been the concept ones. And in grad school, my last year, so I got my master's in fiction, and I had this idea. So most of the time, when you're getting out of grad school and you're doing your MFA, you're ending with a thesis, and typically it's short stories, a collection of them, because the first year you're writing short stories. But I had my goal, and I told Rob before we went, I want to take these 2 years, and the second year I want to come out with a novel. So it's a little ambitious and not typically what people did in the program, but I did come out with a novel. But it was really hard because the first semester I had this idea. I wanted to write about surrogate motherhood and sort of these two moms who were best friends, and one of them was the surrogate for the other, and then she had a daughter herself, and so they had they were best friends, and then they had daughters who were best friends, but also half sisters. And I liked this idea and playing with it and what the relationships would be like. And I kept trying to shove the characters in there because I had these characters that came to life, and I kept shoving them. And I was really struggling to write. And what I found was that one day I was like, maybe this isn't about surrogate motherhood. What if I stopped writing that and making them fit into that mold? And then I finished the book. It didn't need to be about that. It wasn't about that. And that concept still interests me. But sometimes when I'm trying to write about concepts, it becomes too rigid for me because I don't like having something rigid. So when I plan, when I outline, when I write anything down, it tends to be a guide. And kind of like when I go to the grocery store and I make a list and then I get there and throw it out when I see what's on sale. That's kind of how I novel plan. And if that stresses you out, cool. Don't do that, right? This is how it works. We can admire how we all work in different ways. My friend Bridget Baker, hey Bridget, if you're listening, she does these massive, amazing outlines. So when it comes time for her to write her book, it's like done. And I was just talking with an author named Katie Cross. I'm in a mastermind with her and a couple other girls. And she was showing us, she actually pulled it up on a screen share during one of our calls, showing us how she does these kind of it was like a hybrid outline draft. And so she's like, when I go to write, I already have like these pieces, like it even had like pieces of dialogue. So she was like, when I know a certain scene and things in it, I'll go ahead and put it in the outline. So I have this very full outline type of things. When I go to write the book, it's half done because it's there. So I respect that so much, but it doesn't work like that for me. So I come up with these scenes or ideas and then I start to write. And then I get stuck and then I have to stop and step back. And that's when I start to plan and be a little bit more, I wouldn't say rigid, I would say intentional. And I might be intentional in the beginning. So I'll give 2 examples from what I've done recently. So I just launched a book called Secrets Whispered from the Sea under my Emma St. Clair pen name. It's a women's fiction novel, my first women's fiction. And it takes place in a beach island that some of my romances, my popular romance beach series takes place in. And it's got similar characters coming in and out, but it was different, single point of view, just from the woman, first person. And you don't ever get the guy's point of view because the romance isn't the focus, even though there's romance. It was quite a departure. And towards the end, it really became a struggle. And I think a lot of it was that my kids started virtual school, and that was just a nightmare, nightmare, because 2020, y'all. And so I had a hard time with that. And I've talked before about how I go into a creative depression when I finish a book. So I have these set dates where I have to send my editor or my proofreader something. And I set them up for the whole year to give me deadlines, partially because she books out 2 months in advance. So I have to kind of book them. And I was like, I could do a book a month. And that's what I've done all year and I've sustained it. but I don't want to do it again, just FYI. But sometimes I would find I had two things for her, so I'd send something to somebody else because I do write quickly. But I had something due to her. It wasn't done. The last couple chapters weren't done. So what happened was I think I sent her what I had to proofread. And then I was like, I'll proofread the last couple chapters really well and have my betas and ARC readers help with that, which they did. Thank you guys so much. But that creative depression that usually comes the moment I finish a book came when I sent it to Judy, my proofreader, which meant that I was stuck writing the last couple chapters and epilogue while I was in a creative funk and my kids were virtual schooling, which was like, sometimes I spent 3 hours a day with like my second grader. It was the worst. And so I had the worst time finishing it. When I finished that, I needed a palate cleanse and I went and opened up a romantic comedy I started in 2019 in October. And I realized, hey, I've got like 10,000 words in here because again, I'll get an idea and I'll start writing. And I listened to it. I actually had my Google Docs read to me while I was on the elliptical machine. And I was like, this is actually pretty good. And so I dove in and within 2 weeks had finished a almost 60,000 word romantic comedy. And that's already gone to my proofreader. I'm making a couple updates and then we'll be publishing that pretty soon. The difference with this one, it was a few things. One, there was less pressure on my outside life, but I did go through and look at something I don't always, which is the beats of romance. And I went through and kind of looked at, okay, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen here? And a lot of that did change because again, I go to the grocery store and I throw the list away when I see something that works. I'm a very instinctive writer. I feel when things are slow. I feel when things are right. And that doesn't mean I'm always right. My beta readers and ARC readers really do help a lot with that. When I get it wrong, and I've had books where everybody was like, the end too fast. And I was like, okay, got to go back and fix this. Everybody's saying that. But for the most part, as objective as we can be about our work, I can feel what's right. So I did go through and I kind of filled out almost like an outline-y type of thing, close as I get. The word outline gives me hives, but I did as close as I can get to what was going to happen and hitting all those important beats. And the book really wrote itself. And that was fantastic. I really needed that after I felt like I just slogged through this women's fiction and it dealt with alcoholism and heavier topics, still had humor in it, but the romantic comedy was so refreshing for my spirit, but I planned it really differently because I had sort of more of an outline and that was really helpful. And I think that's the most outliney I have been in a book. And I'm not sure whether, I'm going to try that again with other books, but I'm not sure if that was what helped or not. So those are kind of like examples of how I, in particular, work. And what I do is I create a Google Doc that's my planning doc. And that's what I'm sharing with you guys. Mine is not as formal as the one I'm sharing with you, but I'm actually planning to make copies of mine. Every time I start a new book, I'm just going to click File, make a copy, which is what you should do when you download it. Again, createifwriting.com/novel planning. So whenever I start a new book, I'm going to click Make a Copy and put things in there. And my Google Doc, just to kind of summarize what's in there, but this is also a summary of kind of what I put in my planning document. I do like a short summary talking about what the book is. What is it about, basically? The genre, I don't really do that because I know in my head. Tropes. This is something that I really lacked when I was writing my romance novels. And sorry, I sound a little bit like a prepubescent teen here with my voice, but if you're using something like tropes, because fantasy has them, urban fantasy has them, the orphan who doesn't know they have the magic powers, different things like that. So there are a lot of tropes. If you're using them, put them in there. And like I started to say, when I first started writing romance, I wasn't focused enough on the tropes. And I think that's one reason that a lot of my books, which did well, did not do better. Because they had good writing, they had good characters, but they lacked a trope. And a lot of times for the romance readers, that's what they really need to sink their teeth into. So you can put a list of those there. Themes, which is a different kind of thing. It's kind of big ideas that your story is about. The love of family, love conquers all, different kinds of bigger themes that are in there. And depending on what you're writing, that's going to be more or less there. And anything you want to use or don't use in this document, just delete it and add your own things. It's yours once you make a copy. And then I have a list of characters because, and things about them. Their arc, like how are they changing through the story, physical description, scent, age, family, friends, likes, dislikes. And this is really helpful because like I just got an email from a reader and thank you, Marilyn, for pointing out all of these mistakes I made with the timeline with ages, because I had a book I released as part of a series and then I got the rights back and I changed it. I added about 10 to 15,000 words. And apparently I screwed up the timeline. And I was looking at her notes and I was like, yep, I really screwed it up. So I have to go fix it. But if I had been better about keeping track of this in a document, it would have been better. And I find that happens. Sometimes I'll change eye color. I'm one of those people that doesn't visualize faces. I don't know if did you see the article that talked about that? How not everybody can visualize faces in their mind. So I always think of Arrested Development where Buster sees Lucille too without his glasses and he says that she's a brownish area with points. And that's like how I see all my characters, like a person area with blonde hair, or a tall man type shape with like short dark hair and stubble. Like that is how I see them. Like I don't often do a good job of visualizing. It doesn't work in my brain. And so that means for me, I think that's why I often forget things like eye color and like, was his hair long or short? I don't know. They all have 5 o'clock shadows because I love that. But anyway, that's really helpful to do that because that would save you from what I have, which is when I have a reviewer saying like the eye color changed. I'm like, whoops. Another thing I talk about is setting, when and where, because I'll often get through a book halfway because again, I start writing and realize I don't know what time of year it is. So like, what are they wearing? And here in Texas, I'm in Houston, like literally I wear about the same thing every year. I joke I have a uniform, not every year, every day of the year. I wear jeans or a long kind of skirt that's comfy and doesn't wrinkle because I shove them in a drawer. That's my trick. And I wear a colorful tank top and like a black shirt over it and flip-flops. I wear that in the winter. I wear that in the summer. Like, this is it, y'all. This is what I wear because Houston has a pretty mild seasons. It's very hot in the summer. And then the rest of the year is pretty nice. And every so often we'll have these really cold days. And I'm always surprised because I also don't watch the weather. So like I'm surprised sometimes by hurricanes and other things. But during the winter, I know one time recently I went to the store. I think it was last winter, like in December. And I took a shower, I got dressed and I got to the store. And I remember thinking like when I got out of the car, I was like, I'm a little cold. And so I picked up a hoodie that, I keep hoodies in my car, shark hoodies. As if you're listening, I do still have one. But shark hoodies are my thing. And I went into the store. When I came out, I looked at the car. When I turned it on, I looked at the temperature and it was 28 degrees. We had this unseasonably cold day and I had come with wet hair. I was in a t-shirt and flip-flops with a hoodie on. I was like, no wonder I was so cold. So I'm not thinking about the weather. So again, these are my quirks. You guys may have this down to the letter, but if you're putting it in your document, then you could be like, what time of year is it? And you can go back and see, are there big weather events like hurricanes? But I think a lot of times I'm not thinking about what to wear because I just wear the same thing all the time. And so it doesn't impact me, but it does impact my story unless I'm like living here or writing here. Objects. This is another section. If you want to talk about objects that are symbolic or important or significant in your story. So in Secrets Whispered from the Sea, there was a door that stayed locked until the main character's arc, until she'd gotten to the point where she could open that door. And so whether it's like a big, deep symbol or just something like that that's important, you could put that in there. And, if you've never thought about these things before, maybe this is something that can spark you thinking like, oh, maybe I need some of those things, like an object or a place that's significant that somehow shows and symbolizes the changes that take place. I have a list of conflicts, external things happening around, like I have a book with a hurricane, or internal, how they are struggling within themselves, what changes are taking place. And then plotting. So all the things I've talked about so far, maybe what would go in like a character Bible to some degree or another planning doc. And then plotting, a lot of people will have a separate outline. So if you do that, that's fine. The things I have listed is a scenes list. So sometimes I won't know what my story is, but I will see scenes in my mind. I'll hear characters talking. And so I'll just make a list like, okay, they're at the grocery store. There's a post office scene. And then I know there's a night where they're walking on the beach. And so I'll put those things in there and not necessarily in order, but just knowing that they're there. For romance, I've started putting in beats, like I said, for the most recent book, and I wrote that really quickly. And I think that helped. But again, I don't like getting too specific. I've seen some spreadsheets and I looked at it and like my eyes crossed and I like fell out of my chair. No, too much structure, too rigid for me. But I do have a list of things that are basic and some of them go through, the terminology may change, but they're really similar to things you might find in something like the story grid or other things. So you've got the opening setup or hook. an inciting incident, turning point, midpoint, second turning point, the dark moment or crisis, a revelation or realization, and the climax resolution. And so those are pretty general things that go into a lot of different novels and types of novels. So I have that in there. If that helps you. Timeline, another thing I always forget. I feel like you guys are probably going to walk away thinking, how does this woman ever write any books? Because I've already told you, I forget eye color. I don't know what the weather is. I can't see faces. They're just blobs. I promise I write novels. I think I've now written over 20 in the last just a couple of years that are doing well and selling, I promise. But, the way our brains work is how they work. And this is, I'm jumping into the middle of explaining my process, but this is the important thing. Your brain works how it works, right? We've got nature versus nurture. You can grow, you can change. I am always taking classes, free and paid, to work on my craft, to work on my marketing. Always. Every month there's something I'm doing because I enjoy it. I'm not like listing out the months. What am I taking this month? When I see something I want to learn, I take it and I do it. Again, paid and free. So that would be sort of the nurture. The nature is like how you're built. And I think there's only a certain degree to which you can fight that. And why would you, right? Okay, if plotting would make my life easier, I would do it, but it doesn't. And I did actually try. I wrote 2 books earlier in the year. I think it was Taming the Cowboy's Twin and Winning the Cowboy. And I wrote one just my normal way. And then the second one, I tried plotting, and I read several books on plotting and tried different ways, and it stressed me out and made me frustrated and angry. And I finally threw them out and just went and wrote the book. So, you can try to grow and change and learn, but you don't want to fight against the things that work for you. And so if someone is telling you this is how you need to do it, no, I actually saw some great sessions at conferences, but I heard people say things like, this is how you should do it. And I really balk at those, and not just because I tend to be a rebel about things and don't like to be told what to do, but because you don't want to fight your nature too much. If you can train yourself to use a different method that you haven't used and it helps you, awesome. If you try those, and I would say try things because you don't know. I would never have thought I would be writing a book a month, or I'd be writing most of the words for my books that I'm writing on the elliptical machine on my phone with my thumbs. I would never have thought I was writing romance. So I have definitely taken risks and stepped outside of boxes that I had created for myself. I encourage you to do that, but don't fight against how you're built. Okay. Work with how you feel. Find what works for you. Okay. So that was my little mini rant. That's like the main lesson. You could go ahead and stop listening now, but don't, because I'm going to finish up a little bit here. So plotting type stuff, timeline, outline, and then chapter list. So I put all those things in. You can use whichever of those you want or not, but these are all things that I think have helped me, even as not a planner and not a plotter. Even if I'm coming midway into the book and going back and be like, what color is that girl's hair again? Because every book I do that, every book I do it. And then I have a section in here. This is a way that I have found to work really well. It's one of my favorite things. And I encourage, the clients that I work with in coaching, and I've encouraged friends I've worked with and mentored. It's called the what ifs. And it's similar to writing down the page. If you've ever heard that, it's a type of brainstorming that I do where I literally will just ask questions. And I'm actually going to pull up, I have some examples in the document if you get that, but I want to find the planning doc to read from one of my more recent ones. Let me see if I can find that really. Oh, here we go. Because I want to read to you what an actual what if looks like, so that you kind of get an example of it. And I come back a couple different times to do this. Whenever I get stuck, or I'm not sure where things go, or I hit a point where I'm like, I don't know what scene happens next, or I've got these characters, I've got to set up, now what? Okay, so I have a whole section called what ifs. And I'm just going to read, this is part of mine. What if her mom died when she was much younger, and then he randomly married Nadia recently? What if I make Chuck come to visit, and Alec is there at the same time? What if Emily gets busy and so she has to do the house herself? What if Alec wants to help? What if Jackson hires her? What if she's related to Jackson? What if Nana just left everything to Clem hoping she'd do the right thing? What if they both get everything but they can't agree about what to do? What if she doesn't want to stay and goes out knowing she's not going to? What if she and Anne split the money? What if Anne doesn't want her to stay? What if she does? What did the girls do? What if their mom did something really awful to them? What if she finds herself subconsciously wanting to stay? So it goes through, and you heard a couple in there that were opposites, but some of them are like, what if she finds a job? What if she loses a job? Like they're direct opposites And I just write. I just keep asking these what ifs and following kind of the subconscious trail of my brain, because that's where my characters live. The real great, fleshy, amazing 3D characters live in my subconscious. And when I do this what if, I'm allowing my subconscious to override the blocks and things I'm putting in the way. And I'm just doing hypotheticals, and the story shape often comes to me this way. Now, this could be really stressful for you. And it might give you too many possibilities, but these kinds of possibilities help me because I usually nail down. So in that actual section, and I'm not going to say what in case spoilers, but I figured out from that what if section a new direction and the final direction for my book. Just in that. And that's what it took. So when I got stuck, and I often do this, not even when I'm stuck, but for sure when I'm stuck and I don't know what's happening, I will totally go back in and do that. So that's one of the big sections that's in there. And I do that every time. So I'll hit enter twice and do a new what if section if I need to. And the last thing that I will do, and that's in the document, and you can create your own for this. Sometimes I'll have a separate one. But the promotion positioning, where you're going to look at the comps, like other books that are comparable to yours, so that you can check out things like their cover, blurb, etc. Tagline or hook brainstorming. And these are things that are all going to be public facing. The last stuff, if you ever want to share with your readers, you can, but it's for you. It's for you planning. And this is the stuff for your ads and promotion. Blurbs, ad copy, excerpts for ads, keywords, categories. And then I have an area too that I added in called stuff I've taken out. And I almost always end up taking out scenes, tons and tons. Like sometimes this document, if I have it separate, will be like a 30,000 word document. And some of the things get copied out and pasted back in. The romantic comedy, I took something out and then I shared it with Sarah Adams, who's another rom-com writer. And she was like, why did you take that out? And I was like, you know what? You're so right. Because I'm trying to find the line, because I'm writing romantic comedies. It's still going to be clean, but comedy pushes the envelope, and I cross lines. Like I'm just a line crosser, y'all. And so, but I don't want to cross certain lines in my books. And so that's a really hard thing with comedy. Like where's the line? And can I scooch on up to it and just put a little toe over? I'm like a toddler, right? When you're like, don't touch that. And they just go up and like, just put the finger on it. That's what I'm trying to do with a romantic comedy in a way that's going to be good for readers. So I shared this with Sarah and she's like, put that back in. So I went and got it back in. I found a place that it could go that worked better. And I went and took it out of the stuff I'd taken out and back into the book. So this is how I plan. This is a look at my nutty brain. And I'm just a little scared of what you guys think about me now. But I do it, right? It works for me. And if this totally stressed you out, hearing that I'm forgetting eye color and see people as brownish areas with points and, all of this, then oh my gosh, do it whatever way. This document still may help you though, because you can tailor it to what you want. And after having written 20 books and published them and made significant money, really like full-time income money, you guys, doing this, these are the things that I would include. You can do them how you want. You can utilize it how you want, but these are the things you need to include when you're writing. And so whether you're doing it my way or another way, I think it's very adaptable. So again, you can go to createifwriting.com/novel planning. I feel very exposed with all of this that I've shared. I think just because my process is weird. I'm writing on an elliptical machine and I don't know a lot about my characters because I forget and I don't have a plan and I find the answer brainstorming because my subconscious tells me. We are all doing it differently. And so there maybe for all 6, for every 6 people that think I'm, lost it, there's 2 people who are like, yes, or maybe 1. Yes. Take from it what you will. The big thing is that we need to be challenging ourselves to do better. With every book, I want to be better. In college, when I wrote songs, I felt like every song that I wrote, was a step forward. Let's try something new. Let's learn how to do this on the guitar. Let's try this kind of thing. Let's make every song a step forward. And I feel like that way about books too. Like my first books, I'm still proud of them, but I want to be learning and growing. I also want to learn and grow I don't want to learn and grow about myself. I want to learn about myself. How do I work best? And can I try something new and find that it works well? So I think that there's a need to know yourself well, to lean into that and not fight your nature, but also to challenge and to try and test, because I have been so surprised so many times in in what I have done. So surprised because I put myself in a little box. And so don't put yourself in a little box. You're bigger than your box. Okay. You're bigger than your box. Challenge yourself, try new things, but also find a way to do that is not fighting. And if you find yourself struggling and hating it and really not liking the process, then maybe find a different process. Step back, take a little bit of a break, figure out what it is that's driving you nuts about that and stressing you out and taking the joy from it, and find a different way to do it. So that's what I'm leaving you guys with tonight. I'm thankful that you are still listening, even though I have these big breaks, and I'm going to try to be more consistent, but goodness gracious, 2020, y'all, say it with me, 2020, y'all. So again, you can go to creativewriting.com/novel planning to pick up that novel planning document and adapt it to whatever works for you. If you want to talk to lovely other creatives and authors, you can head over to creativewriting.com/community to join the free Facebook group. I would love to have you in there. Every weekend we do a share thread where people share links to what they are selling and doing and creating. And it's pretty amazing how many wonderful people we have in there at all stages and in a lot of different genres and fields. So it's great to be there. Thank you to Jasmine Commerce of JasmineCommerceMusic.com for the music you are currently listening to. And now it's that time. It's the time where I challenge you guys to go out and create content that you love and serve your people well.